Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Alex. I am a full-time social media manager and freelance social media manager and content creator for about a year now, and here's how I did it and how you could do it too. Today's video is going to be a little bit different from what I normally post. As you guys know, I post a lot of vlogs about my life as a social media manager, and a lot of you seem to like that content, and I love creating it because I like watching this type of content, like a glimpse into a lot of people's jobs and what they do, whether it's a 9 to 5 or like content creation or whatever. It's just so interesting to me. I've been meaning to make this video for such a long time. Like literally the day after I got my job, I was like, I need to do a video about this. And the reason why was because I was so intrigued by the process of, going through this last job search process that I did, and pivoting into the role of social media, that I really wanted to make this content to help other people who were interested in doing the same thing. But I'm glad I'm making it now, because now I've had a year of experience under my belt, and I feel like I can really dig into a lot of the things that you may need in this role if you have never done social media before, but also a lot of the things that I carried with me in jobs that were not even related to social media. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe, because I do post weekly vlogs about my life as a social media manager, which seem to be equally informational and informative, and I talk a lot about the daily tasks that I do while on those vlogs. So we're going to go back and rewind a little bit to some of the context to provide you context about like why I switched and what I switched from, and to show you that it is also possible for you too. So in school, basically before the pandemic, I was studying to become a marine biologist. All of my resume experience has literally been in labs doing research. I went to research competitions. I was coding for my research and making graphs and all of that, and literally on the field, on boats, on the water, doing marine science research. So I graduated from college with with an environmental studies and creative writing dual degree, a bachelor's in the arts. And as soon as I graduated from college, I accepted a role in a different industry, working for a nonprofit that does a lot of like water work. And after that role, I realized that this is not what I want to do. And I'll go into that another day. I talk a little bit about it on my other social media about why I switched and why I no longer, am drawn to academia or marine science or anything related to that. But anyways, when I knew I wanted to switch in 2023, I gave myself 3 months to find a new job and in a different field. And you're probably thinking, whoa, Alex, that's not a lot. But I was very ambitious, and I moved to Minnesota from New York City in 2018. So if I wanted to continue staying here and not moving back in with my parents, I had to find a job immediately that I can transition to. Also, it should be noted that I was experiencing some bad mental health in that other job, and just the other job not treating me that well, and so that was also another urgent reason why I had to leave. Anyway, so after 3 months of job searching, I was successfully able to find a social media role, the role that I currently have now, and I work for a very large organization managing over 14 social accounts, which is a lot, but a lot of social media managers manage multiple accounts at the same time, so it's not really a lot, but yeah. And so that brings me into present day and why I want to make this video. I feel like there is so much gatekeeping in many career fields. I'm not just talking about social media, but I'm talking about, content creating, right? Or like software engineering or tech or whatever. Obviously, there are people who are trying to be more transparent about it, but then there is a lot of gatekeeping, especially as you go higher up the totem pole, to like a lot of bigger companies. Obviously, you're fighting with so many different candidates. Like, I feel like there's a lot of gatekeeping, and I haven't seen a lot of people be open about talking about career changes and career switches, which is so totally normal to be either thinking in your early 20s as soon as you graduate college with a degree that you are not using at all, or if it's later in life when you just want to try something new and you don't want to do the career that you've been doing for 20 years. I feel like people aren't talking about this, and it made me feel really alone in my job process. Not gonna lie, I experienced a lot of imposter syndrome. I truly think the only thing that was getting me through my job process was the fact that I did not want to move home, and I was like desperately looking for a job, and at the same time I wasn't taking anything. Like, I knew in myself that this job, because I was quitting my old job, I knew I wasn't just going to settle for anything. I wanted the perfect job, and fortunately I found that job, but it took a lot of time, work, and just like having conversations with myself and conversations with the society about like why we aren't talking about this more, about how to career switch, about how to, frame your roles or description from another company or another job to one that you would prefer more. Oh, it's getting hot here. I think also we are kind of shifting away from this belief that we need a college degree or a certain type of degree to get a certain job, when in reality, there are so many, different ways to get a job and to pivot, I think obviously for some roles and careers that may be the case, like a degree you definitely need because you need to learn the skills and you need the education, but in other ways, there are certification courses, there's learning on the job that I think a lot of careers, like social media management, is something that you can do. Okay, so before I jump into all the tips in the video, I do want to put a little disclaimer out there. I know a lot of people, and I received this on a lot of my other social media too, are like, Alex, you have a pretty decent social media following. Like, these tips are not saying anything because you use your social media following to get a job as a social media manager. And to that, I will say that is completely untrue, because I actually purposely left out my social media accounts from my resume and portfolio when I was job searching for this recent job, because I didn't want it to influence my job. And I think people see that as two ways, right? One, it's great to have a following and great to have that knowledge of content creation that may help you in a role. But on the other hand, you might be posting about something that is not, I'm not saying that I post like, non-PG stuff, but, it's something that may not align with a company's role. And so you really got to be careful about whether or not you choose to disclose whether you post on social media. And for me, I just thought it was a non-issue. Like, I wanted to get a job based on my previous experiences, and if a role didn't want me for all the experiences and perspective that I brought, and if they only wanted me for my social media, then I don't want that job. So I didn't include my social media. But I will note that it is still possible for companies to look you up. In fact, I think it's pretty common now for companies to like literally look you up on social media just to make sure that you don't have like a secret account and you're not like spewing information that they don't align with. And so you can't prevent any of that, because honestly, my social media is out there for anyone to look up. But I will say that I was very surprised that my company now was able to find me, since my name that I go under for social media is not my legal name. So that was very interesting to hear about after I got the job. Anyways, let's get into some of the tips about how to become a social media manager in 2024 with little to no experience. For the first part, we'll focus on the resume and how to really buff up your resume in order to stand out against a lot of other candidates who may have a little bit more social media experience, professional experience, I will say, not just their own experience, but professional experience working in a business, a nonprofit, an organization, any of that, because it looks a lot different than how you would manage your social media for yourself. Before I was applying to these roles, I knew that I had no professional experience. I knew that I had to reframe some of the skills that I had in my past jobs and past roles in order to make them applicable for this social media role. When it comes to building your resume for any type of job, but also especially for a social media role, know that a lot of social media roles require soft skills. I think a lot of it is less technical than people think. I think those technical stuff you learn on the job, but also there are certification courses, there are YouTube videos, there are all that, for the technical stuff like boosting and SEO and KPIs, all of that. And I think the soft skills that people don't really acknowledge are attention to detail, communication, effective communication, and writing emails and holding people accountable, because you're going to have to be communicating with a lot of stakeholders in order to get your post out on time. And so for me, it was about reframing some of the skills that I learned in my other jobs in order to make me the best candidate for this role. And for example, I would use my customer service experience at Madewell when I worked in a retail store like in 2019, and I would use that to help my resume, because I knew that I learned valuable skills working retail for a pretty high-end company, and catering in customer service, communication, getting orders out on time, like all of these skills are things that I use in my day-to-day. Not my degree, not my professional experience, lack of professional experience actually. And then here comes the question of how did I pivot my marine science lab roles into a social media role? And to this, I will say that it was very, very hard. But first of all, I looked at the job descriptions of all the jobs I was applying for, and I tailored my resume to each job that I was applying for, which is a lot more work than just sending the same resume to every job. But I really, really, really think it helped me. So if that's one thing you take from this video, know that you custom tailor resumes for each job that you apply to. And so for my marine science roles, I was picking out the smallest things I could find, like attention to detail, like multitasking, all of this, like, talking to stakeholders, and writing. Writing was a huge one because in social media, copywriting, like you're writing stuff every single day. I think people think that you're just creating content and posting, but no. You're like writing stuff and getting it edited and edited again and retouched or whatever. Like it's a lot of writing. And so I truly think that that was what made me most successful in my job searching process, was really being able to take those roles and make them so, like visible to the company that I was applying for, that they were like, oh yeah, this makes total sense, right? Like this makes so much sense that you're like using all of these skills and applying for this role, and that you can totally do it, because it makes up for some of that professional experience that other people might have when they might not have the same skills as you. They might not have that attention to detail or experience with customer service, because all they've ever done is work social media from behind the screen. Also, I will note, when it comes to jobs like this in a creative space, and especially social media, I would advocate for adding a little bit of fun and creativity to your resume. And I'm not talking about going the whole shebang, like doing a whole like graphic design stuff, or you can do that. I highly recommend it because that's what I did. But I think it is really controversial when people talk about resumes, because so many people are on the side of like one column and no design, no color, just black and white, when I'm on the opposite spectrum. And I believe that resumes should be fun, especially when you're in a creative space. And most of the time for social media roles, you will be graphic designing or using like color and fonts and whatever. So I think it's important to show those skills as well. I personally had my resume custom designed, so I'll put a screenshot here if I can like redact the content and show you, but it was like to the nines. Like it was not a black and white resume. And I was really happy with it, and I thought it really showed off my personality as well. Someone who is creative and fun and bubbly and loves colors. Like that's the kind of energy that I want to bring to a job. And if the resume is gonna like give companies the ick and not make them want to work with me, then I don't want to work with them either. The next tip that I will give for, trying to get a job as a social media manager in 2024 is to first create healthy social media habits. But truly, a lot of companies want to know, and I think when we talk about burnout is kind of inevitable. It's kind of hard to avoid. And so I think when a lot of companies are hiring for social media, they want to know that these people that's why it's really good to have professional experience, because you've done the job before, you know how stressful it is. But I think too, in creating social media healthy habits, they ask about that in the interviews. So in a lot of my interviews, they were asking me, how do I avoid burnout? How do I keep up with trends on social media without, tiring myself, or, creating healthy habits. I think a lot of the good companies, when they're really hiring for the right person, they want to know that like you have yourself made healthy habits and choices with social media, that this job won't completely burn you out to the point where you like quit in 6 months. You know what I mean? Like that's the reality of it, because some jobs were only a number. And for that, they want to make sure that they can keep their workers working for as long as possible. And so if you want to get those jobs and compete with people who have that experience working in the field, definitely I would say is manage your own habits first, and be prepared to talk about that in the interview, about how you're able to sustain long periods of social media or screen time, or dealing with hate comments. Be prepared. Show them that you are prepared for the big responsibility, and the weight of the responsibility. Like social media management isn't just like la-di-da, like I'm go on my phone once a day. I am pretty much on my phone, and I think I have tripled my screen time since doing this job. And for some people, that is a no-go, right? Like that is a non-negotiable. They don't want to raise their screen time. But for me, I have created healthy ways of, managing social media that when I do have that screen time, I make up for it by, tripling my non-screen time hours on the weekends or at night or in the morning. So I think it really is about a balance, but, knowing how to display that to these interviewers, these companies that are hiring you is super important. I would even think ahead of the game and think about some of the obstacles that you will be facing in this role. So think like if you got the job tomorrow, what are some obstacles you would have to face? And be prepared to illustrate that to these companies and be prepared to talk about that, because that's the kind of stuff that they really want to get into in interviews when you're interviewing for social media roles, is like, do you know what you're getting yourself into? Like, do you really know? Because I think for a lot of people, like, social media is a job that a lot of people want to do, right? But it's also a job that not a lot of people want to do. And so finding that right person is very hard. And so illustrating that you know your responsibility beforehand is such a huge thing. And it's something that I did in my interviews, that I think whenever I said something about like my social media habits and the way that I have created healthy ones, they were like, They like shook their head and were like, showing me verbal and visible cues that they were very impressed with the way that I knew so much about like creating healthy habits and, work-life balance. And I was so young. This next tip that I'm going to give is look for experience. Don't wait for it to come to you. Now, this is a big thing, especially when it comes to the conversation about unpaid internships. I think it is a privilege to look for experiences and have the time, energy, and, money, because most of the time you aren't being paid for this extra experience to do these experiences. Now, my tip is not telling you to like log off of here and go look for an unpaid internship in social media. That is not what I'm telling you. In fact, I'm a huge advocate of paying people for internships, so please don't do an unpaid internship. But I will say that when I say this tip, it's definitely making opportunities for yourself in things you're already doing. I think when it comes to social media, experience does matter, but that doesn't mean certain experiences are held over other experiences. So for example, I would say that any type of social media management experience goes a long way in these interviews and in your application. So find opportunities to manage other social accounts. Do you have a friend who owns a small business? Do you have a family member who owns a small business? Volunteer to manage their social media account on your free time and start really small. Maybe make them a content calendar, make them like a 5-month plan, maybe get some posts up for them, just create some content. It really is in the small things. I remember in a marine science internship I was doing, in college, I asked the lab that I was working for if I could manage their social media account, like their Instagram account, and do a lot of that for them. And that counts as experience. And granted, I was volunteering to do it, so I wasn't getting paid extra for it, but I was getting paid through my marine science internship. And I just decided to like help them with social media because I thought it would be fun. And that worked a long way in my favor, because now when I was applying to jobs on social media, I was able to leverage that experience. For like 3 months, I was managing a social media account, and here are the statistics, and here are the things that I posted, here are examples. Like, I was able to create a portfolio for myself without even knowing it. And that's what I mean by creating experiences and not waiting for them to come to you. I think a lot of people think that with social media freelancing, especially in contract roles, a lot of people like ask people to do them. And for some extent, that's true. Like, obviously, if you have a portfolio and you're a business owner and you do a lot of social media freelancing, word of mouth does happen and you do get recommended from other companies. But most of the time, it's a lot of cold emailing, a lot of networking, a lot of that. And so another tip is to not sell yourself short. Like, I know imposter syndrome is a big thing, but the only way that you're going to be able to get that experience is if you go out looking for it, not waiting for it to just fall in your lap. And who knows, maybe it might fall in your lap in a year or two, but the benefit of that is you could have been getting it like a few months earlier, Something that I did that was really effective when I really decided that I wanted to make this switch was identifying companies and organizations that I was really interested in creating content for and doing some of that content creation for them. Because again, some of these companies can't afford to pay full-time salaries for social media managers, and so they outsource. They do freelance, they do contract roles, they do UGC, user-generated content from small creators or not even creators. Like, these people might not even have social media followings, but they just create content for brands because it's real life people doing the stuff, The next tip, and I won't spend too much time on this because this one is kind of like a no-brainer, but I also feel like it's something that is just, again, stems from a lot of like your own free time and a lot of privilege, and it's about who you know. So networking. And I think our world right now, we live in a world where leveraging things like networking is a huge thing, and networking is a huge thing in our world right now because of social media, because of, in-person networking things. Like, it's really about who you know in the industry. And I think it's the case that it really goes a long way to put your best foot forward in terms of meeting other social media managers and getting connected with them. Because I also think too, it goes a long way when you become a social media manager and you have a lot of social media manager friends who you could rant to or you could talk about issues with. Like, oh, there's this one problem with Meta. Like, how did you solve it? And they know the answer. You know what I mean? So it goes a long way into the career in general. But I think it's always a great idea to, whether it's reaching out to people on LinkedIn, interacting with posts on LinkedIn. I will say for the job search that I did the 3-month job search, a lot of the interviews that I did get were from people in my network who were just doing like a cold interview with me, like kind of sussing out the vibes to see if I was a good fit for the company. Those were a lot of the initial interviews that I just got immediately without even applying. And so for that, I will say it was so helpful because I was just really looking back at myself and thanking myself for making those connections and reaching out to people. I'm reaching out to people in my network. Like, it's no shame to be like, hey, like, I'm looking for a job. If you know anybody, just keep a word out, because ever since I did that and really received a lot of good feedback on my end, I have started doing that for other people. I am on LinkedIn daily, but I have so many friends that are job searching right now because of layoffs, and I will send them information. I will send them job postings. I will send them everything from my network because I got that done for me, so I'm going to pay it forward in terms of that. And people are always thinking like that. There have been tons of people who have received opportunities from that same experience, and so they're going to want to pay it forward to you. And so you just got to put it out there. You got to put the feelers out there that you are looking for something, or else they're never going to know. People can't read minds. I think that's the one thing that I learned just since job searching, especially this last time, was that like people can't read your mind. Like, you want a job that has a great work-life balance, is remote, pays this much salary. Like, you got to tell people, because people don't know what you want and they don't know what you need. And so it's super important to make that known. Whew. Okay. And the last job tip, or the last thing that I will say that really will make you successful in becoming a social media manager in 2024, is adaptability. This is something that I learned after I got the job, and because when I was job searching, I was only looking at the type, like, keywords for social media manager, and I feel like that really took a lot of opportunities away from me. And now, after I have this job, and I will say that I do often look at LinkedIn and job openings and all of that. Like, I'm a human being. But I will say with that is that there are so many roles that have different job titles, but have the same exact job description. And you've probably already noticed this and probably already seen that, and props to you because you are already ahead of the game. But knowing that is going to go a long way, because I think searching up different keywords and maybe even looking in completely different industries to find a role that fits you, but may not even be social media manager, but it kind of echoes the vibes of social media manager, if you know what I mean. For example, my role title is not even social media manager, it's social media program manager. And that's because along with my job, I also do a lot of programming. So I run our e-newsletter, and I do a lot of other things that are, just outside of social media too. And even though email marketing is a form of social media, I would say it also is not traditionally what we think of social media. So I think putting that in the job title is very fair, that you're not only going to be focusing on traditional platforms, but I think also opening your eyes to other roles. I think that's a super big tip in job searching in general, but especially with social media roles. I have seen so many things: social media strategist, social media brand manager, social media content creator, or, or specific things, social media marketing manager or like marketing assistant. And the marketing assistant is literally just a social media manager. So like it really, really, really depends. And it's really important to read those job descriptions and read what they are looking for in that role. I also think when we talk about adaptability, we have to talk about the onset of freelance, contract, and not full-time roles, and the onset of non-traditional roles in social media. I think it's very fair to say that if you are interested in pivoting into social media management, be prepared to work a non-traditional role. This is not like your everyday role. This is not like working 9 to 5 at a tech company. It is a role that requires a lot of flexibility and adaptability. And if that is not something that you are interested in, then maybe this job isn't for you. I think not only your working hours are a lot different from other people's, but the way you work is going to be a lot different from other people. You're going to have a set of tasks that are the same every single day and every single week, but every day something new will come up. You will maybe have a shoot for a video one day. You're maybe going to have to go off-site for something to do an interview. You might have to troubleshoot something for 3 hours with meta support. Like, it really changes every day, and I think adaptability is the number one thing you need to have in order to be successful, and you need to display in job interviews and on your job application. I think something that I was prepared going into my three-month job search was that I was prepared to take on a non-traditional role. So like a freelance or contract role, I was fully prepared to take any role that came my way in terms of like length of period, because the reality is there are not many full-time roles that exist for social media. I think a lot of bigger companies like the bigger ones that have more employees, they can afford to pay someone full-time for social media. But I have learned that a lot of smaller companies, nonprofits, they will outsource and they will hire. And this even applies to the big companies too. This is not a blanket statement. I'm just saying that a company functions differently and a lot of people will want to hire full-time and then some don't. So I think it's super important to keep your eyes open and know that a freelance role or contract role is life-changing too. Like, I understand the financial stability that comes with the full-time 9 to 5 role, but I think freelance and contract really opens up your perspective into maybe having more clients in the future or more clients at the same time, which could be very lucrative. I mean, even now, look how far I came. After my 9 to 5 job, I started doing freelance and contract roles for social media to the point where I have like 3 of my own separate clients who aren't affiliated with my 9 to 5 job at all in any way, and I get paid as a side income, side hustle from my 9 to 5. And I was able to apply a lot of that roles, the skills, and leverage my 9 to 5 job in getting some of these freelance roles and contract roles. Like, it really has changed my life to understand my ability to do the work that I can do, and also understand the power in a lot of the previous experience that I've had. I think a really great LinkedIn post that I saw this morning was someone talking about how pivoting in your career or doing a career change is not starting over. And that is something that I wish I had heard when I was job searching, because that is so true. It is not starting over. It is turning a new page in a book and putting yourself forward to become the best person you can be. And I know in my heart that in maybe 3 to 5 years, I'm going to be in a completely different career field. That's just the way I've seen it. I'm not going to stay in social media forever, neither do I want to. I want to go into a different role, maybe UX, UI design, maybe marketing, just traditional marketing and not social media, like ads and all of that. And I think that is something that I've come to terms with. And now knowing that I don't have to start over is really helpful. And so I want to bring that to you guys. If you're ever thinking of career changing or career switching, that it doesn't mean you have to start over. It just means you are moving forward with the roles and experience that you have, and being the best, whatever you want to be. We have reached the end. So thank you so much for listening to my little spiel. I really hope this video helps you. I think there are a lot of tips in this video that I haven't really seen people talk about, especially because social media is still a very brand new industry and career field. A lot of people are still sussing things out, but I think these are the things that help me the most and that I think would be so successful in 2024, especially as we, come into this new and exciting world of like social media. Social media just keeps evolving, right? And then AI, how do you tackle tackle AI. And I think a lot of these tips kind of tackle those issues of how do you make yourself stand out beyond other candidates and beyond artificial intelligence, you know? So I think it's super important to really think hard about what you want. And if you still haven't decided that yet, I would say take your time and decide that first before you jump into applying for any role, because I will say that I've done that in the past and it has made me feel so bad and not prepared for anything. So if that's one advice I could give, definitely prepare yourself and try to find what you want to do first. Thank you guys so much for watching to the end of this video. If you are still here, please subscribe if you want to know more, give this video a thumbs up, and yeah, I'll be posting more videos and stuff about social media management content. So follow me if you want more, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.